Okay. With Eibishter's help, today's daf is daf Lamed Zayin, and we're going to begin from the bottom of daf Lamed Vov Omid Beis. Okay? The bottom of daf Lamed Vov Omid Beis, Lamdoi Medrash. Okay? So, the Mishnah, we learned over here in our Mishnah that, let's just go who's who. It's very simple Gemara. The Reuven is the Madir, and he tells Shimon, my possessions are asa from you. In other words, you can't benefit from me. So Reuven made the neder, and Shimon is the mudar. He has to keep the neder, and he cannot benefit from Reuven. Okay? Now the Mishnah tells us, and this goes back to our Mishnah, Daf Lamed Hey, that Reuven can teach Shimon medrash. He could be the teacher. Halachos, he can teach him halachos, va'agodis, and he can teach him the musar of the Gemaras. So, because teaching somebody Torah, the other person's not benefiting from it. The other person is learning and he's enjoying it, but it's a mitzvah, and mitzvah lav lahenes nitnu. So you can teach them. Hi, Louis. We just began. So when that Lamed Vav Amid Beis, 4 lines from the bottom, we learned in the Mishnah that Reuven, who Shimon cannot benefit from Reuven, so Reuven can teach the Shimon medrash, halachas, agodos. Avaloi, he cannot teach him. Avaloi yilamdenu mikra. He can't teach him chumash. That's what the Gemara says. So the Gemara asks a question. Hold on one second. So the Gemara asks, mikra my tam lo yilamdenu. Why can't he teach chumash? That's the question of the Gemara. The Mishnah says if you're also if you're teaching, you can't teach chumash. You can teach in Gemara, halachas, and agodas, but you can't teach. Reuven cannot teach him chumash. Answers the Gemara, mishum demkahani lei, because when Shimon is learning chumash, he's enjoying it, and Reuven is not supposed to give enjoyment to Shimon. 1 second again. Okay. So that's why. So then the Gemara asks, if so, midrash nami kamanale, then you shouldn't be able to teach him medrash because you're giving him enjoyment by him learning. Reuven should not be teaching medrash or Gemara to Shimon because Shimon is enjoying the learning. So really, there's not a problem if Shimon enjoys learning. Mitzvah, he's doing a mitzvah. It's not considered enjoyment when you're doing a mitzvah. Mitzvah lav lehenes nitnu. It wasn't given over for enjoyment. That's not called enjoyment. So what is the reason why the Mishnah differentiates between teaching medrash, where it's permitted for Reuven to teach medrash, but not permitted for Reuven to teach a chumash? The Gemara Amar Shmuel says, "B'mokum shnoit l'sochar al mikra ve'noit l'sochar al midrash." Our Mishnah is talking about a place where normally you pay for somebody to teach you chumash, and you don't pay for somebody to teach you medrash. So if you don't pay somebody to teach you medrash, so you can teach, Reuven can teach Shimon medrash, but chumash not, because by Reuven not charging Shimon for teaching him chumash, Shimon is saving money. And therefore Shimon is benefiting by not paying Reuven for teaching him chumash. So the Gemara asks the question, my paska, why is it that way? Why is it and people pay the Rebbe to teach them chumash, but they're not paying the Rebbe to teach them medrash, halachas, that they're not paying him? So maybe it's the opposite. Why are we saying that they're paying for teaching chumash? So we go to Lamed Zayin Amud Aleph. Hakamash malam. So the Brisa is the Mishnah is teaching you like this. Really, you shouldn't take a Rebbe is not supposed to take any money for teaching Torah. Okay, imagine you're thinking about, why did I pay all this tuition? That's where it really should be. Ideally, nobody should take tuition. But for chumash, sometimes they allow them to charge. The Rebbe could charge a tuition for teaching chumash. So that's frowned upon. That really shouldn't happen. That's not so happen. But sometimes they do take sachar, they do take reward, they do take wage for teaching chumash. Ala mikra shari lemishkal. But that was only, they allowed you to take reward for teaching chumash. Ala midrash loy shari lemishkal. They never gave you permission to take a tuition for teaching medrash. So Gemara says, why is it that way? First of all, b'chalal, why is Torah supposed to be taught for free? Why is a Rebbe who's teaching Torah has to do it for free, is not allowed to charge money? Maishno medrash deloy. Why, if you're teaching Gemara, you're not supposed to charge money? So the Gemara answers, because the pasuk says, Moshe Rabbeinu is saying that God commanded me at that time to teach you. Uksiv, so Moshe is the teacher. Uksiv, and the pasuk says, Re'eh, Moshe says, look at me. Limaditi eschem, I taught you chukim umishpatim, statutes and laws. Okay, I taught you the Torah. Kasher tzivani Hashem elikoi, just like Hashem commanded me. Now, what Moshe is not saying is that I taught you everything that Hashem commanded me, because that's obvious. Moshe is not going to make things up on his own. But what he wants to say is the way I teach you, the way I'm going to teach you is the way I was taught by God. So therefore, God never charged Moshe for teaching him Torah. God gave it for free. So Moshe is teaching it to the Klal Yisrael for free. Moshe didn't charge any money. So therefore, Moshe is saying, Ma'ani bechinam, just like I teach for free, af atem bechinam. I want you to also teach for free. In other words, when you're teaching Torah to somebody else, you should not charge any money. That's why when you're teaching Medrash, Halacha, and Gemara, you should not charge any money, because you're trying to be like Moshe Rabbeinu. If so the Gemara gets to the point, the crunch point. Mikra nami bechinam. So when you teach Chumash, it should also be done for free. So why is it that you're allowed to charge for teaching Chumash? So the Gemara says two reasons. Hamachlokes. Rav says shchar shimur. It really normally you're teaching Chumash to young kids, children, and therefore the Rebbe is charging the tuition because it's like a babysitting. Besides teaching, he's also watching them because they can't watch themselves. So that's why it's being charged. You can charge for Chumash, but so according to Rav, if someone's an adult and wants to learn Chumash, you're not allowed to charge him. It's only a child who's learning Chumash you can charge him. Rabbi Yochanan said, Schar Pisuk Ta'amim, that really for Chumash you could charge. But what we're talking about, that Chumash, really Chumash you're not allowed to charge. If you're teaching him the Chumash, you're not allowed to charge. When are you allowed to charge? If you're teaching somebody how to lane, you're teaching him the musical notes, the trup of the Chumash. So that is really not real Chumash. It's just teaching it's not midaraisa. These musical tones, according to Rabbi Yochanan, is not real Torah. And therefore, a Rebbe can charge to teach a kid bar mitzvah lessons or teach you how to lane. So even for an adult, according to Rabbi Yochanan, teaching trup is permitted to be, you're allowed to charge to teach somebody how to lane. So now the Gemara asks a question according to Rav. Now, we learned in our Mishnah that if Reuven made a neder against Shimon, now we're going to presume that Reuven is a gadol and Shimon is a gadol. And Reuven told Shimon, you cannot benefit from me. So Shimon is prohibited to benefit from Reuven. So the Mishnah says, Lo yilambenu mikra. He cannot teach him Chumash. So he cannot teach him mikra. That's what our Mishnah says. Reuven cannot teach mikra, but he could teach medrash, but not mikra. According to the opinion that's talking about that you're allowed to take reward for teaching somebody how to lane, and therefore our Mishnah makes perfect sense. If Reuven wants to teach Shimon how to lane, right? If Reuven wants to teach Shimon how to lane, normally Shimon would have to pay Reuven his laning teacher, and if he does it for free, then he's saving Shimon money. He's directly benefiting Shimon. I knew that's why our Mishnah makes perfect sense. The loy yilamdenu. You're not allowed to teach Shimon. Elo lemandi amaschar shimur. That the reason why you pay for mikra, normally you pay for mikra, is because you're not paying the Rebbe for teaching, you're paying the Rebbe for watching kids. But our Mishnah is not talking about kids over here. Reuven is made a neder against Shimon. And so Shimon is not a kid. So technically, on the surface, Reuven should be allowed to teach Shimon Chumash because he's not supposed to charge for Chumash. Gadol Bar Shemahu is a Gadol needed to be watched, so he doesn't need to be watched, and therefore Reuven should be allowed to teach Shimon Chumash. Answers the Gemara. Our Mishnah is talking about the Kotan Katani. Fascinating. Our Mishnah is talking about Reuven Asered Shimon, who is under Bar Mitzvah. He's a young kid, and he said, "You can't benefit from me," and therefore Reuven is not allowed to teach Chumash to Shimon, because by teaching Chumash, he's really actually performing a babysitting service, and therefore Shimon is benefiting because he doesn't have to pay for a babysitter. So Gemara says, if our mission is talking about a young kid, the Reuven Shimon case is Shimon is a young kid, Ema Sefer. Let's take a look at the end of the Mishnah. Avo Malamed Esbanav Mikra. You're allowed to teach Shimon's children Chumash, right? Shimon, you can't teach Chumash, but you're allowed to teach Shimon's children Chumash. So first of all, if our Mishnah is talking about where Shimon is a Katan, so how is that Katan able to have his own children? Katan bar banim, who can young kids have children? That's very unlikely. We do find, by the way, in the Chumash, where somebody who's under bar mitzvah had children. We find in the Chumash that Yehuda had children, Erev Oinim, they died, and then they had new children with Peretz, and they also had children, all in a span of 20 years, which means that they were 9 when they had kids. So if you make the cheshbon in next week's parsha. But generally, a Katan cannot have children. So therefore, the question is, how could you say our Mishnah is talking about a Katan? Answers the Gemara, Rab's going to tell you, Chasuri mechasra v'hochi katani, that our Mishnah is missing words. Lo yilamden, if Reuven makes a neder and asks Shimon from benefiting from him, lo yilamdenu mikra. Shimon cannot be taught by Reuven Chumash if he's under bar mitzvah, b'katan, because Reuven really should charge money for watching Shimon while he's teaching him Chumash, because Shimon is a katan. And if he doesn't charge money, then Shimon is benefiting from him. So therefore, he shouldn't teach him directly Chumash. But im hayagadol, if Shimon was over bar mitzvah, so really Reuven would not charge teaching Shimon Chumash. So then, belamda, you're allowed to teach not only Shimon, loy, but ulvanav mikra, you could teach Shimon's children Chumash. Why? Because Shimon the Gadol has an Isser, has not supposed to benefit from Reuven. So, but Reuven could teach Shimon Chumash because Shimon is a Gadol, and Shimon doesn't need babysitting, so Reuven is not supposed to charge teaching Chumash to Shimon. But he could teach not only Chumash to Shimon, but he could teach Chumash to Shimon's children. Now, really, Shimon is supposed to pay Reuven for watching his children. But if Shimon is not going to pay, he's saving money. But the answer is that's not a direct benefit for Shimon. That's not a direct benefit. It's just telling Shimon, oh, you're saving Shimon money that he doesn't have to pay Reuven. So it's like a saving of money. And perhaps Shimon would have found somebody else to teach his children for free. So it's not a direct benefit for Shimon. It's an indirect benefit, which is permitted for Reuven to do an indirect benefit for Shimon. Mesave. Okay, let's go back to where we're talking about. The Gemara said before a machlokes between Rav and Rabbi Yochanan. You're allowed to charge teaching Mikra. When you teach somebody Mikra, you're allowed to charge. Rav says that's only if you're teaching children. But if you're teaching an adult, you're not allowed to charge, because your Torah is supposed to be taught for free. And the reason why you're allowed to charge for children, because it's a babysitting. Rabbi Yochanan said that when we say that you're allowed to charge when you're teaching Mikra, that's referring if you're teaching somebody how to lane. Mesave. Let's see another question against Rav. We learned in the Mishnah, Tinoikis, young kids, loikarim batchila b'Shabbos, should not learn new material on Shabbos. You know, there's a yeshiva in the old city that actually has yeshiva on Shabbos. So this Mishnah, the Brisa says that children should not learn, if they're going to yeshiva on Shabbos, they should not learn new material. Elashoinim barishin, they should chazer over and review what they learned during the week. That's what the Brisa says. Now, So what does that mean? The Gemara understands that the reason why they shouldn't learn new material is because the Rebbe is getting paid. On Shabbos, the Rebbe is not supposed to earn money. And when you're reviewing material, the Rebbe is doing it for free because he's not teaching anything new. So Bishlama, it makes perfect sense. L'man de Amar, according to the opinion, schar pisik ta'amim, that when are you allowed to charge if you're teaching laning? And if you're teaching the trup, so that Bryce is talking about the Rebbe is teaching trup. I knew the ein karim batchila b'Shabbos. That's why the Rebbe cannot teach laning brand new material on Shabbos, because then you're going to have to pay the Rebbe, and then he's earning money on Shabbos. But if he's just reviewing, if he's just chazering over what he taught during the week, you're not going to pay him anyway. So that's why this whole Bryce makes perfect sense. The Rebbe should not be teaching new material on Shabbos, because then you'll have to pay him. But you can chazer over what you learned. You can chazer over with the children what they learned during the week. Fine. That the reason why you pay, the parents pay the Rebbe teaching their children, is because basically they're paying the Rebbe as a babysitter. So what's the difference if they're learning new material or the Rebbe is just chazering the material? At the end of the day, the Rebbe is still babysitting the children, and therefore he's getting paid even on Shabbos. Amai ein karim batchila b'Shabbos. According to this, why couldn't the Rebbe teach new material on Shabbos? Amai shoynim b'rishon. Why do they have to review what they learned during the week? He's actually getting paid for watching the kids on Shabbos. He's going to get paid for that.
A lot of people get paid for work on Shabbos. Tons of people. Every youth director that only works on Shabbos, every girl who comes in and watches little kids in shul on Shabbos, every caterer gets paid to work on Shabbos. Tons of people get paid to work on Shabbos.
So that's the Gemara's next question.
You teach him to how to move the settlers on.
Right.
Teach the children, the parents finishing.
Right. So that's the. That's the Gemara's next question. How does it even make sense if he's teaching? If he's teaching, you're telling me tinoikis loikarim betchila b'Shabbos. That means if he's teaching laning, you're not allowed to teach it for the very first time on Shabbos. Because like you said, Steve, you're not allowed to earn money on Shabbos, right? But there is a way to earn money on Shabbos. Because if you can swallow the money, if you can make like that, you're not just earning the money for Shabbos, but you're doing the work during the week, and then you're combining the payment. It's like you're saying that when you're paying a caterer to do the Kiddush, you're not paying him for the work that he's doing on Shabbos. You're paying him for the Kiddush, which he needed to start already preparing on Friday. And that kind of payment is permitted. So that's Gemara's question. Why can't he teach new material on Shabbos? You're telling me because he can't earn money on Shabbos? Havlahi, we can get around it by swallowing it in to other work that he's doing. V'havla mishrushari, and swallowing in the payment, in a payment that's lumped together with work done on the weekday, is permitted. So the Tanya we learned in a Brisa, let's say you hire a worker, Lishmar Satinik to watch watch a kid, Lishmar Sapara to watch the Paraduma, Lishmar Sazroyim to watch your field, okay? Whatever this is talking about. If he's just watching it on Shabbos, and that's it, like you said, then you can't pay him for Shabbos. Therefore, he can't get paid for Shabbos, and therefore he's called the Shomer Chinam. We go to Amid Beis. Im Avdu, if it got lost or stolen, the Shomer, the watcher, is not responsible because he's not even getting paid because it's Shabbos and you're not supposed to pay him. But there's a way to get around it. If you're paying him for a week at a time, this is a weekly salary, or a monthly salary, or a yearly salary, or just a Shemitah salary, then you could pay him for work done on Shabbos because you're not specifically paying him for Shabbos. You're paying him for the whole week, which
like a rabbi in shul, right?
Right, the rabbi
in shul gets paid for Shabbos. It's just lumped in. I mean, if a rabbi would come and say, "I'll work 6 days a week, but you'll never see me on Shabbos," you would tell them, we're not paying you for that. We're paying you to be on Shabbos. If Shabbos is included in the salary.
That's what I'm saying. If exactly. So that's what the Gemara's question. So if you're paying him for the Shabbos, then he has to take responsibility to Shomer. So what the Gemara is trying to say is, how do you give a blanket statement that if I'm teaching somebody to lane on Shabbos, I cannot teach him new material? Why not? Let's say I was hired to teach him during the week as well. And then Shabbos is part of the package. And we learned that if you hire somebody for a job and he's doing work during the weekday, you can hire him for the whole week and pay him for the Shabbos material that he's doing as well. So the Brisa makes no sense, even according to the opinion of Pisuk Tamim, that you interpreted that he's teaching laning. Ella, the Brisa is talking about something totally different. And it's fascinating. A fascinating thing. If Brisa is talking about a Rebbe teaching new material to children on Shabbos, but you're not allowed to. Why? Because when the father sees that his son is learning new material, he's gonna keep his kid in the yeshiva for a long time because he wants to make sure that his kid gets it, and he's not going to disturb it. But it's going to disturb the Oynik Shabbos that the father has to spend time with his kid. So therefore, the Rebbe should not be learning new material. That's what he says. The reason why Shabbos a Rebbe should not teach new material, because the fathers look forward to be with their child to spend the mitzvah of Shabbos, of enjoying Shabbos. And if he's going to see that his child is learning new material, he's going to be, held back from disturbing his child learning with the Rebbe. He wants to make sure the kid gets it. And therefore, he's not going to spend time. It's going to disturb the Oynik Shabbos of the father. That's why we tell the Rebbe, don't teach new material. If you're teaching a class on Shabbos, don't teach new material. The Iba is saying, and another reason why a Rebbe should not teach new material on Shabbos, very interesting thing. The kid is not going to get new material on Shabbos. Why? Because his diet changes. And he's eating by a kiddush, drinking sweets, right? V'yakar alayin alma, and the world is heavy to him. He's sluggish on Shabbos. And therefore, Keda'amar Shmuel, Shina Vesit, if you change your normalcy, what you normally do, even including to your eating habits, it's the beginning of the sickness of the stomach. What it doesn't mean you're getting sick, but because of Shabbos, their metabolism changes. Once your metabolism changes, your focus changes. And therefore, the kids are not going to be able to focus on new material on Shabbos. That's why the Rebbe should not teach new material on Shabbos, but it has nothing to do with earning money on Shabbos or not earning money on Shabbos. It has to do with the kid being able and capable. It has to do with the kid being capable of learning new material on Shabbos. Okay, now the Gemara switches gears. Ulaman the Yamar, Schar Pisik Ta'amim, the one that said that when we say that you're not allowed to charge, you're allowed to charge for Mikra, right? We said for teaching Mikra, a Rebbe is allowed to charge. One opinion said that's only if the Rebbe is teaching laning. So why didn't he say, my time la'oma schar shimur? Why didn't he say that the Rebbe can also charge if he's babysitting? Why didn't he agree to the opinion that a Rebbe can charge if he's also doing babysitting? Answers the Gemara, Kesava bonus mi boy and shimur. Do daughters need shimur? Because our Mishnah says a blanket statement. If Reuven asered Shimon, but Reuven could have also asered Tzipora. Because the way Rav learned our Mishnah is that Reuven asered Shimon, who's a katan, right? And therefore, the Mishnah says that Reuven should not teach Shimon because Reuven should be watching Shimon because he's a kid. And therefore, he's allowed to get paid. So therefore, by teaching him and not charging, Reuven is benefiting Shimon, who is a katan. But the Mishnah doesn't differentiate. And the Mishnah should say that if Reuven aser Tzipora, who's a katana, then Reuven can teach Mikra, because generally girls, you can leave them alone without supervision. They don't need supervision. And therefore, they don't really need a Rebbe to watch them. And so why is it the Mishnah is a blanket statement that the Mader, Reuven, can never learn with the children of whether it's a boy or a girl? It should differentiate. For boys, where they normally should charge, they could not learn with. And the girls, they are allowed to learn with. And since the Mishnah does not make this differentiation, he says our Mishnah is referring to Skar Pisik Ta'amim, that the Rebbe is teaching laning. And really, he could charge to teach to lane. And therefore, there's no difference between boys and girls. Girls could also learn how to lane, but the Rebbe has to charge. And that's why it's a blanket statement across the board, no matter who he's teaching. The Rebbe should not be teaching, the Madir should not be teaching the Mudar Mikra. Well, the Mandi Omar, according to the opinion, Schar Shimur, that it's what Schar Shimur means, that what our Mishnah is talking about is the reward that you would normally pay for babysitting. My Tama La'oma Schar Pisik Ta'amen. Why didn't he learn our Mishnah that our Mishnah is talking about the charge of Pisuk Ta'amen, that really you could charge, a Rebbe could charge to teach somebody how to lane? And says the Gemara, the other opinion holds, Rav will hold, that teaching somebody how to lane has to be done for free. It's not that this was the musical notes, the trup was made up later. Pisova, Rav hold, Pisuk Ta'amim Da'iraisahu. Actually, the trup actually is Midaraisa. Somehow Moshe Rabbeinu gave over the trup. The Omar of Rabbi Ika bar Oben, Omar of Chananel, Omar Rav. What is the meaning of this pasuk? In the Nehemiah, by Yikru they started learning. Basefer Torah Selakim in God's Torah. Mefirish. V'sam Seichel, they put their mind to it. Vayavinu b'mikra, they understood the Chumash. So we darshan this pasuk. Vayikru b'sefer Torah Selakim, they started learning Chumash again. Zeh Mikra. They learned Chumash. Mefirish, they learned the explanation of the Chumash. Zeh Targum, they understood the translation. V'sam Seichel, they gave thought to what they're learning. Elu hapsukim. They began to learn where the psukim end, where the psukim begin. You know, it's not written in the Torah, but they knew where the stop sign is and when the next sentence begins. Vayavinu b'mikra, we darshan, they understood zeh pisuk ta'amim. The Nehemiah taught them the trup. So we see the trup has been around for many years, even by the Nevi'im's time, and therefore wasn't made up later on. And therefore, it's part and parcel of regular Chumash, regular learning Chumash. And therefore, Rav would hold that you cannot charge money for teaching laning. It has to be done for free. So therefore, Rav had to think of another case where Rebbe could charge money for teaching. And that Rav learned that it's talking about a Rebbe teaching small kids Chumash, where you can charge babysitting. But Amilah, others say no. Others say that Chumash, the trup, is not Midaraisa. It was made up much later. But what did they learn in Nehemiah's time? Elu HaMesairis, traditions. Sometimes you add a word and add a letter to the Chumash, or not, or take away, or there's a Kri, how you read it, it's different than how it's written. That is what Nehemiah learned. So basically, you're walking away right now is whether it's a machlokes in the Gemara, very fascinating machlokes, is the trup, the laning. Is it like something that Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Sinai and taught us the trup of the Torah? Or as Rav understood it, or Rabbi Yochanan understood it, no, it was made up later on, so that you'll know how to, because from the trup, by the way, you know how the end of the sentence is, a pause, a comma, so you know how to put the tone into the psukim and understanding it. But that was made up later. It's not real Torah, and the Rebbe could charge for teaching how to lane. The Gemara will just do one more piece of a small Gemara, a minute, that will teach you other things that really are not. If you know how to lane, and read the Chumash, so then if you know how to lane Sefer, you'll see that in the Chumash, the pronunciation and certain things are halacha l'Moshe Sinai. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak said the following statement: Mikra Seifrim, Iter Seifrim, V'karyim v'loiksiven, Uksiven v'loikraryim. How to read certain words. Certain words are extra. Certain words in the Chumash, if you open up a tikkun in the Torah, certain words you read it, but it's not even there in the Torah. And sometimes it's written in a certain way and it's read something else. All these things that you read, halacha l'Moshe Sinai. The Gemara gives you now just a few examples. Mikra, Seifrim, Oretz, Shomayim, Mitzrayim. You know that when you read the word Eretz in the middle of a word, you pronounce it Eretz. But if it's at the end of a pasuk or by a snachta, you pronounce it Oretz, right? And Shomayim is generally Shomayim with a pasach if it's in the middle of a pasuk. But if it's in the end of a pasuk, you pronounce it Shomoyim with a kometz. Mitzrayim is it's if in the middle of the word. When you get to the end of the word, it's pronounced Mitzrayim. That is halacha l'Moshe Sinai, the Gemara says. That's called Mikra Seifrim. What's Itur Seifrim? Sometimes there's an extra word at the pasuk. I'll just bring one up on the screen over here. It says, we learned in Pashas Ve'era, Avram said, I'm going to take a piece of bread. He told the Malachim, just eat and satiate your hearts. And then he should have said, V'tavaru, and be on your way. He said the word acher tavaru, and then after tavaru, the word acher is extra. These extra words that you find in Chumash are halakha l'Moshe Sinai. Acher tavaru, acher telech, acher te'asef, kidmu shorim, acher noignim, tzikoska kehareel. It should say tzikoska hareel. It says the extra kof. So sometimes the Chumash, for the sake of linguistic, so that you could, it's smoother to pronounce, it's smoother to read the pasuk. The pasuk actually will add a word so that it flows nicely. But that doesn't mean the word is necessary, and it doesn't mean you have to darshan the word. So that is called iter, crowning the book, was also halakha l'Moshe Sinai. Let's give you two more examples, and that ends it. Karyen v'lo ksiven. Some things are not written in the Chumash at all. You open up the Torah, the Torah, and it's not there. But you're supposed to read it by heart. For example, pros the Belechte. I bring up a pasuk over here. It's a pasuk in Melachim. Vayachtav is Hadar ben Melchtzaiva, Belechte lahashem yadai benahar. And that's what the pasuk says. If you open up a Navi, it doesn't say the word pros, but you're supposed to put in that word pros. So like it's something that it's read, but it's not written there. The word ish there, it doesn't say the word ish in the pasuk. Boim the nivnasa, law deflata, the word law in that pasuk deflata, es the hugad in Rus, Eli the Hagarin, Eli the Hasorin, Halain. These examples are karyim like savam, that you're supposed to read it, but they're not written in the Torah. They're not written in the Navi. For example, Batoime Elah, Rus said to Nami, Kol Asher Toime Elai Eseh. Anything that you say to me, I will do. That Rus said to Nami, but it doesn't say Elai. It's Kri, it's written. You're supposed to read it, but like Siv, it's not written. So you have to be a good laner to know that although you're going to read it in a cloth without nakudas, you'll have to remember to put in this Elai. Now the Gemara is going to say some things are written and you're not supposed to say it. So when the pasuk says "Va'ata ki omnem ki goyal anoichi," it really says if you read it inside, it says ki im, but you're supposed to skip the word im. That's also halakha l'Moshe Sinai. Ksavim like kroyer, the psukim that it says something there, but you're not supposed to read it. No, the yislach, and we go just two more lines. Zois taham lamed ches, zois taham mitzvah, yidrich tahar noirach, chamesh the pas negev im the chigoyal. So the haloin, these are examples. Ksavim, it's written there. V'lo kari, you're not supposed to read it. So that, and if somebody doesn't follow these things and he accidentally reads it, or he forgot to put in the word when he's supposed to put in the word, then you're not yaitza. And I want to tell you, as a kid, I remember reading the Megillah for my grandfather who was in a home, my great-grandfather who was in an old age home. I didn't know that in the Megillah, there's certain psukim that you're supposed to read it differently, and or you're supposed to put in a word, even though when you read it in the cloth, it doesn't say that. And therefore, I read it wrong. So forgive me, but he wasn't so he was not well then. So okay, but I learned that there's a lot of things that are written there. You're not supposed to read it. Things that are not written there, you're supposed to put it in. And all these things are halacha l'Moshe Sinai.